Hello, and welcome to the VEST webinar series. I'm Megan O'Neill, your moderator for today's webinar session. Today, we'll discuss some of the improvements and highlights of our latest desktop release, HyDraw CAD 2026. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes. You'll be able to submit questions or comments at any time during the webinar by posting in the questions section located within your webinar control panel. Questions may be answered as they are posted, or we will try to address them in the last 5 minutes of the webinar. Note that today's session is being recorded and the audio is muted for all attendees. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please use the chat window to alert our support staff. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's webinar session, Carlo Malone. Carlo has worked in the hydraulics industry for many years and currently manages application sales and training for VEST desktop and cloud products. Carlo?
And thank you, Megan, for the introduction, and thank you all attendees for joining today's webinar. So today we talk about HyDraw CAD 26, which has been released this week, officially this week. I start from the website. If you already asked the upgrade instruction, you will see in the link a slight difference compared to previous version. We have an installation for the library manager without library. Like I always say to existing customer, if you already have a HyDraw library, you should not install a new library. You should keep updating and work in your current library. There are tools in the library manager to keep the library up to date. So instead of always delivering a huge download, we now have the option to download just the library manager, which is a lighter download, which will help for those that already have a library. Under the HyDraw CAD 26 what's new, you can view the new things that we have in this version. As always, they are divided into application, library manager, and AutoCAD engine. So if I scroll to the end, then I go to the practical demo, but there are some AutoCAD improvements. When you will install HyDraw 26, you will notice a much faster, more responsive operation in file handling. This is thanks to the enhanced AutoCAD 2026 engine. There are some improvements in the library manager, which I'm going to dive into a bit now. So let me explain. Since beginning, we started having the ability to define pipe and tubes in the library. This is a recurring request I get from several customers when doing training. How can I quickly populate model data for pipe and tubes? So unlike components and accessories, where we had already the ability to import Excel file, now we introduce the import Excel file also for the pipe and tubes, which has never been added here. So I have for this demo prepared a small table of pipe ANCB 36, so standard, extra strong, extra strong piping for inch piping. So I'm going to show how to import this in the library. So today, although I'm going to show new features in 26, I'm going to also to draw a small diagram. So like always, I like to keep a practical approach to the software. So always show commands in a context of a practical example of usage. So I'm going to use one of these piping in the schematic later. So when you are in the library manager, you can move to connections and import. Let me close the pipe Excel file. Make sure that the file is saved but not opened in Excel. Now you will need to browse and open the file. Any Excel file might have different sheets, so you will select the sheet and the category. You can import pipe, tube, or hoses. Now for me it's pipe. The same Excel file can be used to update existing pipe. So if you need more attributes, then you will be able to add additional information to your library. Next, usually you will have headers in the Excel file. You can select all the columns that you need. And I those is already prepared data, so the mapping is there. But if not, you might be able to map the Excel table with the corresponding equivalent HyDraw CAD property. Then we can go next. And now I can massively import. So Control A to select all this table, and you can import massively into the library. So this command will help you creating the library very quickly. Also, since we provide some tubing into the library, and it was not very easy to delete, it was one by one. Now we have the ability to select multiple, and you can really clean up all the library very quickly and import the table that you need with all the characteristics that you need. So this will help people set up the pipe and tube library much quicker than what happened before. In addition, we had a request for some customer where some attributes are too short, they need different fields. So when defining properties, if you create a new text property, this is applicable to note here. Let me go to the components, model properties. If you create a new property for a component, not to the pipe and tube, it is possible to specify also a long text. There was a limitation to the text string. I think it was 50 or 60 types. If you need text attributes longer than that, now we have an option in the library itself. So that there are some hidden enhancements in the library manager. The most relevant is what I have shown, basically for the connection lines. There are other aspects with look and feel. So you will notice crisper text, easier to read with larger high DPI screen. But let's move to HyDraw. There is for HyDraw Library Manager a tool for migrating the settings also. It gets installed. So if you already have a previous version of Library Manager, you will be able to migrate the settings using this HyDraw Library Manager migrate settings. In the past, we had not. So now we have the ability to migrate settings also from HyDraw Library Manager. With the current version of HyDraw CAD, we introduced a different way of migrating. I already did that, so I'm not going to show you how it works, but in the migrate settings, now you will have the possibility to migrate not only the settings related to the HyDraw engine, but also to the AutoCAD part. Unlike previous version, if you attended to training or even webinars from myself, I keep saying there is a difference between options, HyDraw options, and AutoCAD engine options. And here in the AutoCAD engine options, I always show how to link templates, standard templates. Now all these settings that you have made in previous version of HyDraw CAD can be migrated to the latest HyDraw 2026 through the migrate dialog, which is something you will use only once if you already have. So it's not really important to showcase. It will help you in the first installation if you already have a previous version of HyDraw. So my recommendation is don't remove the previous version. Always install the new one, test it out, check that everything is fine, and then you can remove the previous version. Now I'm going to start a new diagram, and I'm going to use an enhancement version. So my plan is to draw a small diagram showing you some new commands that we have. So I start with a title block, and in HyDraw CAD we had the ability to insert items from part list. The functionality was interesting because from basically a list of model codes, you were able to quickly build a diagram. We got requests from several customers where they wanted to keep item IDs that are already in a bill of material. So say you already have a project in hand, which is very similar to something that you already have. You have already a bill of material with item numbers. So there is, and this makes sense, the need sometimes to not start with numbering from scratch, but keep existing numbers that you already have. So I have a small example, very, very simple. I have made a bill of material in Excel, but the source might be really whatever you want. So I have the item ID, I have a model code, and I have the quantity. You might have additional attributes, that is up to you. It's not so important. What HyDraw needs is a model code or a part number, depending on what you need, what you use normally to place components. Prerequisite is that these model codes are in the library. So I made sure that all these items are in my library. So if I go to the components, model data, that's my sample library. I have those items that are in the Excel file are here. So let me close and try to build a diagram starting from here. So in order to insert symbol from a part list, you will need the first top left command. And instead of clicking symbol, which for those that do not know, if you click symbol, you will open the Library Explorer, drop down from part list. Now this dialog has changed. We have the option include item ID. This was not this way in the past. And we can select the Excel file. So it's a BOM import. HyDraw is trying to guess where is the model code column and where is the item ID and if there is headers or not. But unless you can change the column and the header. And now we can start placing. So we can insert the pump. And as you can see, it retains item 10. Now I have the motor pump adapter, which in my library is also linked to coupling. So it's also adding different items. I have the electric motor, and I can select which shape I want for the electric motor. And I take the check valve. I'll change the electric motor later. I have a relief valve, and for the relief valve, you can also rotate on the right. In case of quantity, multiple quantities, you can insert. Always select the instance. And we can go on and say we can add additional ones. So in this case, we have the different items placed automatically in the drawing. Let me place again the motor from part list. And I take the motor which is oriented to the left. Point. And as you can see, all the attributes are populated automatically for the component. Let me start drawing some connection lines. So I can flip and I take a cylinder, double acting. Let me move these valves just slightly down a bit. I'm going to make a connection between the counterbalance valve and the cylinder with auto connect. And now from these connection lines, I'm going to go into the right part, and I'm going to select a pipe and check in the library for connection data. And as you can see now, HyDraw is listing all the piping that I have loaded into the library. So here I can sort by pressure and flow, and I need maybe a velocity. I can accept a 6 meters per second velocity, and I can decide which pipe and tube can work for my need. So I select one, and then I get the information. In the past, it was a bit more complicated because really all this data population had to be done manually, one by one, on all the pipe and tube. It's always a one-time effort, but making the Excel import made simpler. Now, another change that we have is the way, well, let me now in this case reassign items. because I want to reassign items. For those using update from Excel, there was a critical aspect in this functionality, which was basically if you have identical model codes in the drawing, then it was difficult. It was not possible actually to specify which item had to be updated or not from the Excel file. So in my case, I have another Excel file which has model code, model family, manufacturer, and part number. So all my components in the library do not have part numbers. And as you can see, if I select one item here, on the right, there is no part number. It's empty because in my library, I don't manage part numbers. So one need for update from Excel is when people wanted to bring in attributes that are not available into the library. So for this reason, it is possible to program HyDraw in the options, application setting, update from Excel. Well, let me close the file. Always keep in mind you must have the file closed. So browse, I can take my all data, my Excel file, and it is possible to map the equivalent property with the corresponding HyDraw property. So the column name with the equivalent property. Now that this is mapped, when we use the update from Excel, just a moment, I had to click OK. Save. OK. Now, if I do update from Excel and select all the items, include all, yes, with item IDs. Now there is a visibility on each single item. With previous version, there was only item 3, and you were not able to specify which items have to be updated or not. Sometimes you might need to update all the instances, but in some cases you want to bring in information that are related only to particular instance of the item. So now we have the ability to select a portion of the items, so just update single ones. And we had the ability, which was not there, if there is no model code. In the past, it was really not possible to take anything from the have anything, any model data, you will be able to select something from the Excel file. So let me take this one. It's not relevant, but it is possible to specify a model code. There's no initial model code. This is another hidden enhancement. Sometimes you will find it interesting. Instead of typing in information, just bring in information from an external data source. Update all. This is going to update the information for the single elements. Like you see here, I have the ERP applied only to some of the components. Now I'm going to make additional connection lines just very quickly because I want to show you something else. So say now that we have a system where we want to control. So we have some functions, electric functions, where we want to control our system. So this valve is going to control the movement of the cylinder, which is maybe a lifting cylinder controlled by the counterbalance valve. So this has always been a question from many customers. What are these S1 and S2 for? And how can I hide them? How can I create solenoid IDs? So S1 and S2 are solenoid IDs, so solenoid tags. They are electric reference that will drive actuation chart. So it's a link between a hydraulic diagram and an actuation and electric diagram. It was not possible to hide massively these solenoid IDs. So if you don't need them, there is a command now to hide. It's under System menu, solenoid ID. You can select all the schematic and click hide, and this will turn on off all the solenoid IDs. If you don't use the solenoid actuation chart and don't want this S1 and the S2 be visible in the drawing, then you might switch off them under options, miscellaneous, display Solenoid ID. So that's a new setting that we have in HyDraw 26 together with symbol color. If you don't like the symbol color, ISO 1219, and if you don't want the Solenoid IDs, everything will turn black and white. And if you bring in a solenoid valve that is supposed to have a coil like this one, this should have S1. It's not showing anything. We can get back to the original setting. So next time this valve will show the S1 and this one not. If you want, you can control the visibility for the solenoid IDs for all the elements in the drawing. I want the solenoid visibility, not with these two, but because I want to show you a bit of enhancement that we have in the actuation chart. So one problem was managing the solenoid IDs. Another problem was adding solenoid IDs to a symbol. So as an example, adding a solenoid ID to an electric motor, or maybe I have a reservoir here somewhere, and I have a level switch or a temperature switch. Let me take a temperature switch. Just a temperature switch. And this temperature switch, once we reach a higher temperature, must stop the pump or must switch on the circuit for cooling. The symbol has no solenoid ID, so it was difficult. You had to edit the symbol in the library and do some change, or I remember spent a lot of time with customer explaining how to manually add a solenoid IDs to a symbol using some tricks in AutoCAD. Now it is possible to add the solenoid IDs. It's here, add solenoid IDs. So any symbol can have a solenoid IDs. So you can touch the symbol and define that. For me, this is the 1 and the position. Also, the electric motor M1 has a solenoid ID. Now, this is a much smarter way for adding solenoid IDs to the circuit in order to give flexibility when defining functions. There was another request, I remember, from several customers asking to renumber solenoid IDs. S1, S2, S1, S2 is not handy. People must edit the solenoid IDs. There was a command, the solenoid info, which still works. So you can go into a symbol and change the name and define the functions. Lift up and link to a particular coil, and lift down to be linked to a particular solenoid ID in the drawing. This was okay, but a very slow process. So now we have a way to massively reassign solenoid IDs. So you can run solenoid ID over a selection of symbols. You can say number with a prefix and starting from 101 as an example. So this will renumber all items massively, all solenoid IDs massively. But even the function and actuation chart has been improved heavily. So while doing an actuation chart for a selection of symbols, now the actuation chart will find all the elements in the, and it is possible to create new functions like pump shut off, which I can directly link to the Y101. Then I can say a new function called rotation right, which can be linked to maybe the Y106, and another function called rotation left, which is going to be linked at 105, and maybe there is a new function called pump pressure system on, that is using something else. Let me take this one and insert. Okay, so by doing that, all the functions are added to the corresponding symbols, and we can create the actuation chart with the corresponding logic. The actuation chart will always be created according to the rules, options, application settings, list and chart. So you will be able, as always, to customize the look and feel. So normally I have a smaller Solenoid IDs and a larger function. And then we can just recreate system actuation chart and select all. So this is, in my opinion, really an interesting feature, because I remember helping many customers with making them understand how to have benefit from the actuation chart, and really how to manage the Solenoid IDs. So by using these techniques, you will speed up a bit the process, and really the ability to build the table on the fly just with the actuation chart command, and starting adding functions or renaming functions here is really a dialogue that makes more sense in general for all those that need to interact with electric diagrams, PLC programming, actuation. Remember, it is always possible to export into an Excel file this actuation chart. So actuation chart, which can be saved into Excel and exported. If we go through the enhancement, so that, because I have covered most of the items, there are some hidden items, but I'll show you briefly if we have a couple of more minutes. This is the first one, and to be honest, it's very important. So now that's the last topic for today, is the Simplified DWG. We had already shown migrate settings, Solenoid IDs, enhancement at the table, the visibility of Solenoid IDs, renumber Solenoid IDs, and so on. But this, for me, for those making the manifolds and needing to import the DWG diagram into Solvos or Inventor or other CAD application, this improvement we made with Simplified DWG is very interesting. So basically, we already had a command to do that, but we have improved it heavily. I see one question. Let me just check it if I can. Questions. So, how to choose host of specific length? Can we choose a host from a list and specify length? Yes. So I get back to the Simplified DWG shortly after answering the question. So host length can be added according to your need. So in the table, in the library, we have the length. So in my example, I didn't import the length, but you can import the length. And as far as you import the length, you will find in HyDraw CAD all the different length. Of course, you will need to specify maybe a part number for those hoses or pipe or tubes according to the length. So any attribute, and the library is very flexible. You can create properties and search for each property. There is another question. Some symbol I prefer no label on ports. Yes, that's tricky. That's not something for. So the request is, how can I hide the symbol port without deleting? This command has been there for many years. Port names, you can select the symbol that you need, maybe all these ones, enter and select hide. This command will hide the port names. So you don't need to delete, you don't need to edit, and it makes sense not to delete or edit, just port names, select all and show. That's much easier. There was another question. Electrical tags, is it possible to have a different text color? Massive numbering for a partial amount of symbol. Yes. So the request is to use two massive numbers. So and the need is to have a different prefix for switches, transducer, motors, and so on. So based on a selection, we can reassign item IDs. Maybe for the valves, we use Y starting from 1. And then we can select the motor, all the motors, and starting from M, and all the sensor starting from S for the sensor, and so on. So this will become a bit of manual work. The interesting part will be using AutoCAD functionality for selection. So AutoCAD has the ability to create a group of selections. So here we are a bit deviating. I'm going into the details of how I would do it. So by creating group of selection of similar components, so spending time once to create a group of selection, then it will be easier to renumber those items massively. So it is possible to renumber massively solenoid IDs by component type. There must be some technique used. And the other question, importing Excel without length and select on my selection. Yes, any attribute here. So there is the length. Now this is not the case, but if I take a hose, there will be the cut length. So you will be able to specify the length of a pipe and tube without importing into the library. It's up to you. But now we go too much into details. Let me show you just the import into SolidWorks. Let me open SolidWorks for quickly, because in Inventor we had not many problem of importing a simplified DWG, but with SolidWorks SolidWorks is a bit more difficult to manage DWG files. So let me just create an envelope. That's a manifold, and let me just define one external port. BSP 3x8, and that's for me B2, and I can copy this to other elements. So with Simplified DWG, it's under System. It's called Simplified DWG. We can select just the portion of the diagram that we need, so just the manifold. In this case, enter for confirmation. HyDraw is asking if you want black and white, so I click yes, and it will go into save the drawing into a let me save into my webinar folder, November 126. That's a simplified drawing. What I normally do in SolidWorks is just creating a new drawing. And I'm going to import that directly as a block. Browse and select the DWG file I have just generated. Just a moment time. DWG file, the 25 webinar, November, simplified drawing. And now the drawing is going to be imported as is. And this is fantastic because it was not working, so I was not able to make it work. If you notice, we changed the technique. The problem was with hatches, because hatches in SolidWorks 99% of the times in metric OS will import hatches as not recognized. So we changed the hatches with this simplified DWG. We change into this surface, which plotted will be full color, but in this way we can really simplify it a lot. And the ability to import a diagram as a block is really fantastic. I remember many customers that simply gave up in SolidWorks importing the diagram because the DWG was really not coming properly. So I invite those to test HyDraw 26 for this purpose. I am done for today's demo, so I thank you for the questions. If you have more, feel free to ask. Sorry for going a bit longer than expected, I turn it over to Megan.
All right, well, thank you very much for that demonstration. And it looks like we got most of the questions answered. If you do think of any follow-up questions, please send us an email to support@bestusa.com with the details of those questions. We'll also send an email out within 24 hours of the conclusion of today's webinar with a YouTube link for replaying this. We'd also be grateful if you could complete a short survey at the conclusion of today's webinar. In that email tomorrow, you will get a link of today's session. Please share this link with your colleagues. The link to view video segments from prior webinars will also be included in that email, and you can always find those on our YouTube channel as well. As you can see, we have this series posted on various social media channels. We invite you to follow these channels so you can receive the latest updates on upcoming webinars as well as product releases. Our next webinar takes place on November 20th, where Olivia will demonstrate library customization on the cloud using our newest cloud product, NetScheme Plus. Thank you again, Carlo, and everyone for attending today's session. Have a pleasant and safe day.